You are listening to the Fitz and Healthy podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lauren Fitzgerald, also known as Lauren Fitz. I'm a medical doctor, a fitness instructor, an entrepreneur, a health and fitness coach, but most importantly, I am a lover of life. And here on the Fitz and Healthy podcast, I intend to give you a ton of great information and knowledge that will serve as potential power so that you can live a life by design and make it more fits and healthy. And don't forget to listen to the disclaimer at the end. I'm not your doctor, yo. All right, enjoy the episode. Much love. Ciao. Hello and welcome to the Fitz and Healthy podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lauren Fitz, and I am joined by my co-host, Cinthanie from Cinthanie.com. What's up, girl?
Hey, girl, hey.
And not only am I joined by her, but I am joined by a close friend, colleague, and someone that I look up to in a major way who is going to bring you an episode that is going to blow your mind today. So, Coach Tulin, what's up, girl?
What up?
So before we get into this topic, what we're going to talk about today, I just want to let the audience know that this episode has potential to change, if not the listener's life, definitely someone in their lives' life, because PCOS and just female issues in general are something that affects us all. And so that's what we're going to talk about. But before we do that, we have to give a huge shout out to our listeners because we literally celebrated 3 months this week on August 1st.
What?
I know, for real. And we have 74,000 total downloads and 148 reviews.
145. 5-star.
5-star. What?
All
okay.
of them are 5-star.
So Cinthanie was reading me the review that she's going to read today, and it's awesome. She was like, it's a long one. I'm going to summarize. I'm like, no. You need to read the whole thing. So read it to us for it.
Okay. So our iTunes review of the week comes to us from Sammy55221, and it says, Mic drop, bam, shut the front door. It's a 5-star review. And she said, listening to Lauren and Cinthanie on my way to work is like having a conversation with my best like-minded girlfriends. Not only is the content so informative and valuable, I find myself busting out into laughter because their sense of humor is awesome. I have worked in healthcare translation and human research and indirectly for pharmaceutical companies my entire professional career. And let me tell you, it's hard to find open-minded colleagues like Dr. Lauren who want to continually learn and share the hard truths of the healthcare field and industry. Side note, Lauren, I listened to The Big Fat Surprise by Nina Schultz, and I have never wanted to punch someone in the nose so much as I do Ansel Keys. PSA, violence is not the answer. And I didn't put that in there. She wrote that.
Yeah.
And she said, he is like the life-sucking boyfriend who never goes away, always needs to be right, and treats you poorly. Anywho, you two are absolutely amazing and empowering, and you have definitely opened my eyes, changed my nutrition and body for the better. I'm eternally grateful. Much love and prosperity to the both of you, Sam.
Dude, that's like one of my favorite reviews.
Yeah.
Totally.
Tell me that's not our tribe, right?
Right? For real.
So thank you, Sam. You rock.
So speaking of our tribe, this woman, let me just tell the listeners when I first even heard about Coach Tulin. I was at a big business event in Dallas called Platinum Presenters, and it's basically where most health and fitness coaches go. And we listen to ways in which we can make our businesses better. And my favorite speaker of the whole event was this chick who I'd never heard of. And I don't know how I hadn't heard of her because she's got a huge following on YouTube and on Facebook. Like her like page, Facebook alone has over 100,000 likes. Like she's legit, you guys. And she just spoke about her journey, about sharing her journey. And her story is just, it touched me. And I'm like, I've got to talk to this girl and meet her. And this was this was last fall when I knew that I was about to move to California, but I didn't know where. I went and talked to her after, and come to find out she lives here in SoCal. And so we connected, we exchanged numbers, we've had lunch. Like she's someone that now I consider a friend, and she's a badass. That's all I got to say. So what's up, sister?
Hey, you. How are you?
Awesome.
Is it weird that we're up the street from each other? But
I know.
We are on video.
I know. I actually thought about having you come here, but it's almost easier to just do
It's so crazy.
I know, right? So, okay. So tell the audience, because there definitely is a proportion of our audience that knows who you are, but I would say a majority of them have no clue who you are. So tell them a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I call myself the plus size health and fitness motivator. I think that's really important. People go, well, plus size is such a negative. Let me tell you something. Plus size gave us a voice, and plus size allowed me to I realized I couldn't find what I needed, which were like modifications and things like that. And then it also gave me options and a place for me to go and find self-love. So I want to start that off from the very beginning, because some people really, really misunderstand the term plus size and think it is a negative. And it's not. It's actually very empowering, and it gave me a voice. It gave me a community, and now it's an audience that I serve on a daily basis. So I'm the former national spokesman for the largest PCOS organization. I stepped down because I felt very strongly and had the proof and the blood work and everything that we can play a tremendous role in being able to change our experiences with PCOS. And I don't know what else to go on. I guess I'm a former anorexic. I guess I'll kind of go into me.
Yeah, most definitely.
So, I'm a former plus size model, but when I was a plus size model, I was actually boxing. And so a lot of people think that plus size models, they have to be a certain size. Well, back in the day, it wasn't about that. It was a place that you can go and love on your body that was outside of the media norms. And there were girls who were larger and fit that didn't fit into the media norms. And so it's completely different than kind of the conversation that's going on right now. It included everyone. There was an A size plus. So, I had battled PCOS prior to being able to be diagnosed. I had male pattern balding. I had all these things going on. But the latest part of my journey was my husband and I had built a very successful online business. We had a business partner who couldn't handle his success, which drove us into becoming broke and homeless. He had threatened to take the lives of 40 employees, including ourselves, on Christmas Eve, and we lost everything. And so, for me, my way of dealing with that was turning to food. Food was my weapon, either depriving myself or filling myself. That's often a misunderstood thing as well. We can get into that. But this part of my health journey started at my deepest, darkest time with my husband and myself. And I remember I watched him do an at-home workout on his hands and knees in a 300 square foot hotel room. And I'd eat Chinese food in front of him and a big McDonald's Coke. So I was purposely numbing myself that was my way of dealing with things. And he had lost the ability to walk for 2 years with his multiple sclerosis. And, we didn't know what the future was going to hold. We didn't know what was possible. And I remember for me, I was trying to walk up 12 steps. And I'm like, I can't do this. Like I have to rest in between. Like my world would go gray. I felt like every ounce of oxygen was out of my lungs. I felt like I was going to pass out the top of the steps. And I didn't have the oxygen to have a word come out, like just to pass through my, my voice box and say something. And so I started over 350 pounds, desperately looking for a version of myself out there, and could not find her because I was ready to quit on myself so many times. Right. I didn't look like the people in the class. I didn't look like the people on the workout DVDs. I didn't look like anyone, and nobody would talk about loving themselves in the process. And this is my struggle and how I'm getting around it. They only talked about their after. And I'm like, you know what? Forget this. Like I need to take care of me. And I use social media with no following as a way to have personal accountability. I went back to my roots of, working with women who have PCOS, working with women who are plus size. And by taking good care of myself, I realized if I were 100% selfish in my own pursuits of my health, that I could be 1,000% selfless for others. And I created a little mini movement. And that's kind of where it was all born.
That totally just gave me chills, by the way. Like, I don't know if you can see in the camera, but it totally just gave me chills.
Yeah, that was awesome.
The journey to start, the moment that you decided, okay, I've got to start this movement. What did you do?
I focused on me.
Okay.
I focused on only moving my body for 14 days. Okay. I was pretty certain I was going to quit.
Right.
I could only go for about 2 or 3 minutes at a time. My middle, I love this description. My belly was about 6 inches down my thighs, but if I sat, it was practically to my knees.
Okay.
And if I raised my knee by a couple of inches, so imagine this visual.
Yep.
It would take my belly apron, which is the part that would hang down over my thighs.
Yep.
Would lift up, And when it would lift up in a matter of just raising my knee a couple of inches, it would come up through my middle. My middle was about 30 inches larger than it is right now.
Jeez.
It would come up through my swollen breast and my back.
Right.
I carried weight all over the back. I carried a lot of weight in my chest, so my neck was about up to here. And I would feel like I was going to suffocate with a knee raise.
Wow.
And a knee raise that was only by a couple of inches. And I'm like, it's really emotional for me because it's when I learned to shut up and listen. And I closed my eyes and I just listened. I said, I'm going to do this my way. I was pretty certain I could out-exercise a bad diet, even though I knew very strongly at that point that nutrition played an enormous role in PCOS.
Yeah.
However, it was my outlet, food.
Yeah.
It was my numbing mechanism. It wasn't about weight loss. I thought my days were over. Not saying that you can't be larger and beautiful, but I felt so broken in my life that I didn't think that I thought we would be that story of, well, my grandparents, they went through a lot. They never recovered from it, but they were, salt of the earth kind of people, that kind of conversation. I just really thought we were going to be that story. So for me, I just want to be able to move right. My body. It was about mobility. It was just about feeling healthy without putting all these pressures on me. And so I started with 14 days of movement, just moving my body my way.
Okay. And not following the modifier in whatever program that you're doing or whatever.
So when I started, there was no modifier.
Oh,
I
serious?
was the modifier.
No way.
I started, can we say program specifically?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I started with Insanity.
Okay. Oh, hail.
Wow.
Girl.
Damn, girl.
Okay.
But I did it my way. And so I
Yeah.
shut my eyes and I'd listen to what Shanti said, because Shanti would tell me, let's go. And I would go. And he would say, you can do this. And I believed him. So if I stopped watching and did it my way, then I allowed my body to move.
Right.
And if that was just swaying when they were jumping, then it was swaying when they were jumping. And it was what we had on hand. My husband had bought it from a garage sale. So I knew I was in really bad cardiovascular shape. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to start here. So my version of Insanity wasn't anybody else's versions. And there were no modifications online. There was nobody showing their journey. There was no one like me willing to show the process.
Right.
Because they were made to feel ashamed that this was not something to be loved, that this was something to not show. And I'm like, F this stuff. Like, I'm done. And so I almost quit. And so the very first video I posted on YouTube was a video of I was going to quit. And it was, my husband left the house. I plopped the video camera up and I said, okay, I knew what the first days of my Insanity journey looked like. I was basically swaying side to side with a very slight knee raise. And at this point, I was able to do more. And so I did kind of like my modification at a certain point, right? And then I did it full out at that point. And I watched the video and I went, oh, girl, it's not time to quit. Like, you've made progress.
Oh,
and
that's
so
chills again.
Right. I'm like, okay. And so I started sharing my modifications, my body in motion, and I could care less about the angle. I could care if my belly showed. I could care less about anything. And so before we had modifications for these programs, I was the modifier. I was showing for myself and putting it online, only on social media, because it was someplace I knew I could upload. I knew nothing about YouTube. So there wasn't anybody who was showing this. So I took a lot of plus size women through Insanity their way to start.
Wow.
I love that. I love the whole do it your way. Like, that's just such an awesome way to look at it, instead of being discouraged because you can't do it the way that it was designed. But that's the thing, is you have to design it for yourself to be able to get through it. And I think that's such an awesome way to put it.
Well, and think about it. The person who's doing the exercise beautifully, they had a day one. So they had to learn it too, and they had to figure it out. And I think that's what wasn't being talked about. So while I celebrate a plus size woman on a journey to fit, I actually celebrate the entire spectrum of fitness, because there's a lot of misconceptions that person that's on the other end of the spectrum can't possibly understand my struggle, can't possibly understand these things. And while there's people in the population who maybe choose not to, the reality is the struggle, the day one, the head trash, the negative self-talk, and using something to abuse, whether it's drugs, sex, or, food, or whatever it is, wine, whatever it is that people turn to numb themselves, is not a size exclusive thing at all.
No.
It's a human thing. So
Well, and that's what spoke to me when I listened to you speak at Platinum Presenters, just showing the journey, because we are so, especially nowadays in social media, no one likes to show anything but perfection. And so it was such a breath of fresh air to hear you say, look, I've come very far. Am I at my end goal? No, but I'm showing the entire journey, because that journey, so many people can relate with and be inspired by it. And I don't know why more people don't. So that I love, you've got so many messages, but that was one of the ones that really stuck to me when I listened to you.
And I honestly think that's where we can give credit back to the plus size community, because when that was kind of coming into its own, that was where we learned that we could be outside of the media norms, that beauty came in a lot of different sizes and looked a lot of different ways, that it didn't have one definition. And really from that movement, and while I feel like it's gotten a little, there's too many agendas involved now, and there is now we try to get away from being put into boxes, and now there's parts of that community that are putting people into boxes, which is strange to me. That idea of finding love in self really, really, really came out of that community. And why, when people poo-poo that or don't understand it, I'm like, that self-love that you have right now and the size that you are, that's where it came from. And I know it because I was a part of it. So.
Right. Okay. So one of the main things that I do want to talk about, because PCOS is something that people, as a physician, even though I'm not an OBGYN, people ask me questions about it all the time. And so I love the fact that this particular episode is going to give not only a doctor's perspective, but a patient's perspective, and not just a patient, but you were the spokesperson for their major national organization. So tell me your history, like when you were first diagnosed, and that history from that point. So
I am a former anorexic. And if you look in a lot of the research, a lot of people who have PCOS had a lot of disordered eating, a lot of ties to anorexia. And I did not grow up in an environment where I could openly talk about feelings or struggles that I had that were hormonal. And so I really suffered in silence and felt very much alone. And I do believe that I was struggling with PCOS at a much younger age.
Okay.
Now, when I was diagnosed at, I think I was about 23 years old. So you're talking about, I can't even do the math, Lauren. About 20 years.
Okay.
So about that was easy math. Okay. Sorry. I can do it.
Love it.
I had gone through years of struggling with weight.
Okay.
Struggling with quick weight gain, just a lot, depression. And it just was like, I was suicidal, just all this stuff, and felt very much alone in it. And it took me many years to actually get a diagnosis, because at the time, so I think there's two things going on right now. I think a lot of times we're too quick to diagnose it. Big girl, hormonal issues, PCOS.
Absolutely.
Back in the day, it was hormonal issues. You're chick. That's just kind of part of the process. And so a lot of it was overlooked. And so I couldn't get a straight answer. And I was still getting the same thing. Why don't you just lose weight? I'm like, this doesn't make sense. I'm gaining rapid amounts of weight. And I went from being...
Was that your main symptom that made you go in? Okay.
Well, yes. I couldn't understand why the rapid weight gain.
Okay.
I started to bald. I started to get male pattern balding.
Yep.
And
alopecia.
And there were some other symptoms. It's been so long, but there was, my periods. Can we talk periods? We talk periods.
Of course. Yeah.
I gotta be real, because if I can't be real,
absolutely,
it's not going to help others.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I started having very strange periods, and very, very chunky.
Yep.
Very, there was something going on. And so I would go in, and they would want to put me on this birth control or that medication. So everyone to medicate. And I'm like, this is something on the inside. And so the first thing I was diagnosed with was endometriosis.
Okay.
So they had done, and I don't even want to talk. Here's the deal, you guys. I'm not going to talk about the meds I've been on, but I will tell you I've been on a lot of meds, and a lot of meds that have been now pulled off. I might mention some from time to time, but I think that people need to journey the way they need to, but I will tell you it was one med after the other, one hormone being cut off here. And the craziest thing, so my hormones were under attack, not only in my own system, but through prescription.
Yep.
So finally, I would stand up and I would just bleed. And I couldn't leave the house. And I remember I went to the American Music Awards, and which is really cool. And I was standing there, and I remember in front of me was Gwen Stefani and Gavin, like right when that love started happening.
Oh,
and
yeah.
behind me was the rest of No Doubt. And so I'm standing outside the shrine, and I'm talking to the rest of No Doubt. And I just got into the doctor. and they were having to walk me to the bathroom to release my blood. And I had all these track marks on my what do you call this? Here.
Your forearm.
In my
Forearm?
Yeah, your AC. Yeah.
Exactly.
Your anacubital fossa. That's actually the
That's what I was looking for, but it escaped me. So, and all of a sudden, so I'm standing there and they're kind of looking at me weird. And I was going really, really pale. And I crumpled on the ground. I was in so much pain. I don't know how I left. I found out later that I had an 11-centimeter cyst in my right ovary. And what we didn't know, and so they sent me to an ultrasound and they're like, hey, I said, I have to go to the restroom. They're like, well, if you go to the restroom, we can't get, I said, I have to go release the blood. I was so piled up with blood inside of me just to release the pressure. Couldn't breathe, couldn't sit, couldn't stand, couldn't anything. They found the 11-centimeter cyst. They went in for surgery and found out that my endometriosis had actually wrapped itself around my appendix. Oh. My appendix was on the verge of bursting.
Awesome.
So did that, came out of surgery, still having problems. So my doctor thought it'd be a really good idea to put me into menopause overnight without any estrogen replacement.
Oh my God.
And you want to talk about suicidal. I wanted to drive. Yeah. I wanted to pull my wheel into oncoming traffic. It felt like my bottom teeth were on the top. And I was begging my doctor to please give me something. I cannot, because I'm still bleeding, still having problems. She washed her hands of me and left me hanging. So here I am with this shot that's in my body, refusing to do any more with no help. And so
that makes me so angry.
It doesn't. So I struggled and suffered, and here I'm getting male pattern balding. I'm blowing up by the day.
Yep.
Cystic acne, hair growing out of my face. I mean, I literally felt like a werewolf. Like it was just like literally, I felt like I was just like transforming. And I remember I used to have really long, beautiful hair, and I would wear it up wet and twisted, and then like a messy knot. And I remember somebody at the front of the office where I work said, "How come you never wear your pretty hair down?" And I was ashamed to say that I'm losing my hair because the woman standing behind me was going through breast cancer and treatment and had no hair, no eyelashes. How can I say because I'm balding? And I just didn't have the heart to. And so I struggled for many years, and I didn't have a doctor, found out that I had endometriosis after the surgery, still having hormonal issues. Now they'll no longer treat me because I'm telling them this isn't working. This is something deep down inside. As a matter of fact, that medication that she was only supposed to be at the time approved for 6 months out of your lifetime can reduce your bone density by 25%. It's now considered barbaric to administer that medication without estrogen replacement therapy. And she had people on there, and people in the community had people on this medication for years. So I have had things that have gone into my body and poisoned it, including another one that I have to have my liver checked every 6 months that was pulled off because it was killing people. So all these things are being dumped inside of me, and they were happy to see these blood tests changing, but I'm like, something's wrong. So I went without any help. I went to an endometriosis support group, found an amazing doctor that came highly recommended who actually was in that group, went and saw him, and he goes, "I'm not the one to diagnose you, but I've got a sneaky feeling." Put me in touch with a very well-known endocrinologist, went in, official diagnosis, PCOS. And it took a lot of work.
How long? How many years?
I don't know how many years. So not only that, they found that I have a thyroid condition. So if you look here, and it sits, my thyroid sits high. So that doctor had actually ultrasounds, said your thyroid sits high, but they were able to find my thyroid through another process of giving me a shot, taking blood beforehand, giving me a shot, 30 minutes later, giving it, and they found my thyroid problem. So all this stuff was like, I was in normal range on some things on my blood test, but it wasn't.
But you were so far outside of normal.
So far outside of normal.
And they were treating the blood lab values instead of the actual patient, and not listening to the actual patient.
Nope. And so I was put on another medication, and they said, well, if this is going to correct your hormones, just be careful you don't get pregnant, because now I'm considered infertile. Boom, got pregnant. They're high-fiving. My blood work is looking better, and I am crumbling. I am sick. I was on disability for 3 months. I was put on other medication. I was vomiting and the other end at the same time. On disability for 3 months, knew that I had a bad mark on me. I used all of my 401k money, all of my vacation days. I worked 2 and 3 jobs up until the night before surgery, just trying to save money, and ended up going into financial ruin and having to claim bankruptcy. So when I got diagnosed with PCOS, the way I was diagnosed is I was handed he handed me a piece of paper, and he goes, "Read this and I'll be right back." And the rest of my life looked like the end of my life. And I thought, wow, oh my God. And there was no help. So there wasn't the sense of community we have now. There wasn't the help. Or if there was community, it was all about the misery of PCOS and not being in the driver's seat of your PCOS. So that was
How
a
old
long
were
answer.
you, if you don't mind me asking? How old were you when you were diagnosed?
About 22, 23. It's about 20 years ago.
Wow. So now you've just essentially been given your death certificate of, hey, guess what? You get to live the rest of your life in misery, because that's what Western medicine believes about PCOS. And let me just ask this, which I already know the answer, but I want to make a point. During these years of struggle, did any of the physicians that you talked to address nutrition or environmental stresses or anything like that?
I had an amazing doctor who unfortunately took his life. And I was approached about how nutrition plays a role in this when I was a model. It was actually in the veil of a magazine interview. And I was in Palm Springs for a job. And I told my husband, we were dating at the time, I said, listen, this guy's whatever. I got a job in the morning. So if this guy's kooky, I'm gonna say I need a glass of milk. I don't drink milk. Whatever the code was, I need to go.
Right.
We sat with him until like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And he showed me how nutrition plays a role. And I said, we're going to do this. And we went in, and this was 15 years ago.
Okay.
About 15 years ago. And we went all in on that. And in 30 days, I went back to the same doctor, who was amazing, because he was one of those doctors that really bridged between Western and Eastern medicine and believed in nutrition stuff, but we didn't know how to apply it. I took my blood work, went back 30 days later, went back and showed my blood work. I was weaned off of my thyroid medication. The only hormone that was slightly elevated was my testosterone. Everything was back to where it needed to be for me, purely with nutrition. But that doesn't solve me using food as a weapon to numb the difficult times that we went through. So I've had this knowledge for years. And when I wanted to speak about it, I was silenced because I was basically ahead of the conversation now because pharmaceuticals didn't want it. IVF doctors didn't want the conversations. Nobody wanted this information out there. And so I stepped down and decided whoever wants to go through this process with me can go through this process. I'm not dealing with this, but I believe that we're in the driver's seat of our PCOS and our hormonal issues. And it was, what came first, the chicken or the egg? It doesn't freaking matter. Right. But the bottom line is there's a way for us to, we can't say that you can cure your PCOS, right? Can't say that. But what if you don't have to suffer from the symptoms? What if you put in some extra work and your life improved 5%, 10%, 50%? Would it be worth it to you? And that's the biggest struggle is, are you willing to put the work in to have the potential? There's 2 hards. Are you willing to do the hard work and put in the direction of having a potential improvement in your life? Or do you want to keep putting your energy that's going to keep you where you are and reduce the amount of time that you're on this earth? So it really came down to, am I willing to do the hard work, even just for a couple of percentage changes? Even for my husband with multiple sclerosis, he's willing to put in the extra work, even if it only improves his life for 5 or 10% or increases his lifespan by 5 or 10%. It's freaking worth it. But that takes a mindset shift too.
Absolutely. So at what point were you the spokesperson for the PCOS Association?
So I was modeling and I was approached. No one today that you hear of PCOS was allowed to attach PCOS to them. They were a public figure. I was told by my agents it would ruin my career, and it might have.
Right.
And I decided that I was going to step up, and I had this platform, and I wasn't planning on modeling for the rest of my life anyways. And I said, I'm going to use my platform, and I want people to know that there's hope. And so I put my voice behind it, but I was a plus size model at the time.
And you were at a big TV production company, right? Or was that before?
I worked for Time Warner. So I handled, so a lot of studio network stuff that we did there. And then I did own my own video production company. I was vice president of video production. So I do have a television background. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. Okay. So you have all of these resources that have potential to reach massive audiences and people like yourself who literally don't have the same resources but are suffering from all of the same symptoms.
Well, I didn't use those resources. I mean, so when I was a spokeswoman, that's different. But myself, they weren't ready for this. Like, first of all, PCOS wasn't even a conversation.
Yeah.
And people being ready to receive that, it's not like it is today.
Yeah.
So what do you think changed?
I think that we have, I believe social media absolutely plays a role. I think that it has forced a conversation. I think that we have become more resourceful. And I think that there was enough of a ripple with those of us that were talking about it, that it gave people to begin to learn to become their own advocate. I mean, you're a doctor, you know what I'm saying? Like if your doctor isn't partnering you in this with you, you're paying them, then you need to fire your doctor and find somebody else. I'd say the same thing about the modeling industry. You are paying your agent 20%. They shouldn't be sitting back waiting for the phone to ring. They are getting paid. You have hired them. Yes, they signed you on, but you're paying them 20%. They need to do their work. So, you know, now we're advocating, and now we're recognizing, because some people stood up and said, hey, there might be something else to this. And we took a lot of the fall for it. But now there's more and more people who are talking about it, and there's more and more conversation about it. There's a different level of authenticity, and the shame is being removed. And that if somebody is still shrouded in that shame, they can at least see somebody else and go, okay, they can see glimmers of hope all over until they're ready to step in and partner with their doctors. Because unfortunately, the medical community is keeping us sick with the PCOS specifically, because they don't know otherwise. I love that your heartfelt yes.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, like you're talking to my soul right now, because I was that Western minded medicine doctor that was closed minded to the woo-woo stuff and nutrition can heal and blah, blah, blah. Cause we weren't taught that in med school. I'm definitely now more Eastern minded. And when I hear stories of, I feel like victims of patients that have paid their doctor who hasn't broadened their horizon to really embrace the fact that, maybe we need to go to natural ways before prescription, before surgery, before all of these Western medicine ideas. Like it angers me, and it angers me when those physicians won't be open-minded to, hey, maybe this all isn't just woo-woo, and maybe you can keep your Hippocratic oath that you took when you graduated from med school, first do no harm, because you had harm done to you by freaking doctor after doctor. And there are so many people that are in your shoes that are having harm done, and not intentionally, but by not broadening your horizons and learning that, okay, maybe putting a person on birth control right away isn't the best thing.
The long-term effects of the medications I'm on absolutely play a role in where I am today.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But if it revealed my purpose, I'll be the guinea pig. And in defense of doctors, they don't know. This is what they know to give us. And in defense of them, as women who go into the struggle, we are looking for the pill. We are looking for the easy way out. We don't want to have to do work, because we look at other people in our life that we admire and go, they have it easy. They didn't have to work hard at it. And I think with the PCOS, what happens, it's like we continue to feed it quite literally, and it kind of knocks at you, pokes at you, until it's just like knocking you like this, going, you need to understand that you are in, you've got some problems that are going to come out of these choices. And so we're guilted. Why don't you just eat? The first thing they say is lose weight, which immediately makes you feel like just eat less. Right. And then we don't understand the fueling ourselves. So, it's this cycle. And where does it start and stop? It's really not the doctor's fault. It's not the patient's fault, but there's not that conversation that's going on through examples and saying, you got to start somewhere. I remember my husband needed to, tutor me in physics. And he goes, I can't tutor you in physics, because he's a physicist. And I said, well, why can't you tutor me? And he goes, because there's no beginning to physics. For me to explain this to you, I have to explain other stuff that you aren't going to be covering until chapter 13. So it's kind of the same thing. It's like, how do you stop and put the cog in, or what is it called? Stop the wheel, basically, right? How do you stop that and be willing to tumble and move forward? Even that means that you're falling on your face, to be willing to experiment, to find what's right uniquely for you.
Exactly.
And that's the struggle.
Okay. So you had this long conversation up till 2-3 a.m. in the morning with this physician who,
not a physician, scientist.
A scientist. Okay. So a doctor, a PhD doctor, who essentially was the first person to introduce you to the idea that I might have control. I might be able to take control. So from that point, how long was it until you actually started to embrace that potential control and start to reverse this downward spiral that you had been on literally since the beginning of your 20s?
Okay, so let me correct that. He was not a PhD. He was a scientist that was going into the research that had already been done and connecting the dots.
Oh, okay.
Got it.
Okay, cool.
So all of these conversations have been being done that were in, what was it called, Graham? PubMed, not PubMed. What is it? PubMed. All these truly published, and he was adding these pieces together. It was already being done. So he was coming from a scientist. He was not a PhD, but for us to jump in and do it, we jumped in pretty quickly, right, Graham? Within about 30 days, maybe a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And we went.
How old were you when you met him?
I was about 25.
Okay.
No. Wait. Oh gosh, Lauren. I was thinking about my kids because my son
Right.
10, 12, maybe 13 years ago. So I guess I was about 30.
Okay, approaching 30.
I was
right?
about 30. Yeah. So
So a whole decade plus of badness. Okay.
Easily.
Ugh,
and
goodness.
it worked so well. And I'm sure you can't make this claim, but I'll tell you my personal experience. I was able to plan my second son through nutrition.
That totally just gave me chills.
And my blood work showed what was possible. Now, I'm not making claims. I can't because everybody's journey is their journey.
Yep.
However, if I can do this and if it allows me to do this, and why am I not willing to do this? Because of the mindset. So I was kind of at a place where my mindset was getting a little strong. This was prior to us losing everything. That was kind of beginning to happen. But it worked. It really worked.
Okay, so
else have been given.
So I can already hear the listeners that are intently listening, and they're like, Lauren, ask her, what did she do? And obviously everyone is different. And that's the crazy thing about PCOS is that people don't realize that it's a diagnosis of exclusion. So that means that for you to actually be given the diagnosis of PCOS, the doc has to make sure that you don't have this and that and that. And then once all of those other big things are marked out and you don't have that, then you're given this diagnosis of exclusion, and it looks different for everyone. And not everyone that has PCOS actually has the cyst on their ovary, like the name, because it stands for Polycystic Ovary Syndrome. Mm-hmm. But guess what? Not everyone with PCOS diagnosis has those cysts on their ovaries.
And not all of them are overweight.
No.
And not all of them have fertility issues. So
exactly. And so that being said, what works for you might work for the listener, but might not. But your story is one that will give them hope. So talk to the person that has potential to change their life doing what you did.
Okay. And I know that can be frustrating for a listener because you want a step-by-step plan.
Yes.
And there are step-by-step plans that will get you into realizing what works for you and what doesn't. And then there's a lot of trial and error. And I know that's frustrating to hear, but you are in the driver's seat. You were in the driver's seat. And so ask your question one more time, Lauren, so I don't get off topic and I make sure I stay in line.
What did you do? What did you do? Because I know that there's so many PCOS sufferers that are just like dying to hear, what did you do?
Okay. Yeah. So basically it's the simple things. So the simplest things, and listen, I am not going to oversimplify this and tell you that it's not going to hurt. It's not going to suck, that there's not detox involved, that your body on a cellular level wants the crap that you're putting into it, and understand that you are not alone in feeling like it is impossible for you. However, the first thing I would say is start layering out something. Find a way that you can get dense nutrition in your body. I'm a big believer in dense nutrition. You figure out what that's right for you. Be willing to experiment because you've done all these other experiments. So let's go into another hard that may have a great outcome on the other end. But one of the biggest things that I discovered was fast food, processed food, sodas, candies, anything like that. Anything I was digesting was feeding my PCOS. But removing any one of those things, it is a difficult process. I understand that. So start with one and add something in that's healthier. Now, let's keep in mind when you start adding in those healthy foods later on down the line, you might recognize that healthy food that you added in could create an inflammatory response inside of you, and keep that open-minded. But what's important is to transition for the way that you are feeding yourself now from being mechanically full into being nutritionally full. And that takes Time
That's brilliant.
and process. Not my words, actually.
Yeah.
But I will tell you from a woman who struggled with PCOS, it made absolute sense. When I ate foods, now understand we were going broke and homeless. People say healthy food's expensive. No, it's not. I'm about ready to bust that myth right now. And I was broken homeless when I started that. And I believed it too.
Mm-hmm.
When I ate foods that were highly processed and cheap, I began to need more and more of it because my body was searching for the bits and pieces on a cellular level that it needed. Our bodies are incredibly resilient, so it'll work with whatever you give or don't give it. And I found myself, so the dollar menu at McDonald's turned into a $30 menu at McDonald's for the two of us. Think about it that way. So I'm able to take in a lot more and I get hungrier faster where the blood sugar drops and the shakes and I got to eat because of the quality of foods I was eating. When I began to incorporate foods that are not in those categories, as an example, I began to feel more mechanically full. And so what was happening was it was requiring me to eat a little less, maybe spend a little more on an item, like $1 for a pack of mac and cheese, supposedly feeds 4. No, it doesn't. It feeds 1. I don't care what size you are. You're eating the whole dang box, right?
Exactly.
But here's the apple. Let's say you choose an apple. Again, just for example, 69 cents. You're trying to feed your family. That only feeds 1. Maybe you'll only eat half of it, so potentially 2. But anybody who's dealing with any kind of blood sugar issues, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, et cetera, we all know that apple isn't going to take care of the Coke that I'm trying to reduce or replace.
Right.
It's a process.
Right.
And so that's why I talk about adding in cleaner foods. And then what you begin to realize when you add in those denser, nutritionally dense foods by definition versus how it is going to affect you to begin with, like on a cellular level, meaning inflammation and things like that.
Yep.
When you start making that shift, the scales start to shift like this. And then you're able to go, when I eat this nutritionally sound food, whatever that is,
right.
Okay, adjust and mature. You will get nutritional maturity about your journey over time, practice, failures, etc. That's how you'll learn what works for you. So when I eat these nutritionally dense foods over here, I feel this way within an hour of eating it. When I eat these foods over here that are not nutritionally dense, fast food, soda, whatever it is, within 1 hour, I feel such and such, which is usually a heap on my couch, asleep, passed out. My blood sugar would drop. So when I began to be able to balance and check, when I eat this, I feel this. And when I eat this, I feel this. I began to realize that I'm in the driver's seat. And if I make this shift, I can feel better. But then there's another side, Lauren. Do I want to feel better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do I want to feel better? Do I want to embrace this process? And do I want to feel better? Or am I really, really empowered by finally having a title to my sickness, finally having these pill bottles that proves that I'm actually sick, that I can validate to the rest of the world that I'm not crazy, that I'm not making this up, that I in fact have been suffering. And right now I want to honor the fact that there are women on this who are listening and their spouses and their loved ones, and you are in fact suffering. But you don't have to.
That
you don't have to. And that's that balance. It's that switch. And so I don't want to pretend. Is there a way that a lot of PCOS women have been able to utilize that helps them? Yes. But get clean in your nutrition. Do it in layers. And if that means that you remove bread and you all of a sudden start eating a lot of gluten-free bread, sometimes the replacement of textures can trigger you. Like, just become aware of that kind of stuff. And then eventually you go, I don't need the bread because maybe the wheat's the problem for you, which tends to be the issue. Here's my issue with PCOS. Can I just be real?
Of course.
Let's be real.
Okay. I am more than frustrated by hearing, if you have PCOS, you cannot eat these foods. I call BS on that because while they tend to be more inflammatory foods, you have to know how it uniquely affects you.
Yep.
And that takes personal testing yourself and sometimes ingesting and being that guinea pig. So is that a place you can start? Yes. But what if you don't have a problem with whatever? I don't even put names on there. Okay. What if you don't have a problem with this traditional category? What if it isn't? Well, maybe your body on a cellular level actually needs it. Or maybe you fit into that, but you have to be willing to test this. So this idea of only these foods, only these blah, blah, blahs, that may get you started, but you have to bridge the gap between where you are right now into eating these healthy foods. And it's painful and uncomfortable. And you have to mentally be able to work on the head trash between your ears to help you through that process. So do it in small little incremental layers, moving in that direction. When you fall off track, pick yourself up, brush off, keep going. And if moving forward sometimes means you're falling on your face in your nutrition, at least you now have a strong data set to compare one or the other. So I'm very big on understanding that PCOS is unique to you. But I will tell you this, you can't help take care of your PCOS if you're still eating the junk food, if you're still eating foods that are highly processed, if you're still drinking the soda, you're not going to be able to outsmart your PCOS. And there's some hard and true facts such as that, but that's a human fact.
True. And one point that I want to make is that there are going to be a lot of people that listen to this episode that had the beginning epiphany of, wait, so what I eat affects the way I feel, not just my mood, but my energy, my symptoms, it's food, really? Because this whole time I thought that low fat stuff that I bought, processed food, was healthy. But you're telling me that, oh, okay. So that epiphany is the first step. But I love the fact
you did something.
Yes.
But you did. So celebrate that. Don't worry that
Yes.
now wasn't the right choice. You only knew that because you made that little layer, that little jump from one to the other. Celebrate that. You got that data.
And it's that's part of celebrating the journey. You are not going to change everything overnight. And especially with PCOS, there are so many, I mean, at the underlying root of PCOS, it's basically your hormones are jacked up on a maximum level. Like they are completely out of whack from all of the stuff that you have been doing to your body, feeding your body for years. And I love the fact that you acknowledge that a lot of people with PCOS have a history of anorexia or bulimia, because that is a great way to start off your adolescence as a female and jacking your hormones up. So another thing that I wanted to point out is that different eating styles, because there are going to be some people that are like, oh, well, you specifically, because this topic is hot in nutrition and fitness world, keto, which I'm a fan of, but keto doesn't work for everyone.
Right.
And keto is one of the many ways that you can try and approach. But I love your addressing the fact that you need to approach one thing at a time, because that mindset shift is out of all of the factors, it's the most important factor that you're going to have to change, and getting out of the mindset of being a victim of, and that's your identity.
Being defined by your illness.
You have
people
PCOS,
wear it like an identity.
Yes. You do. And I think that's also part of the process. So somebody's like, oh yeah, I'm really, don't feel bad. Because we all did, because there's validation. You have validation because there's a lot of people in your life that didn't believe you, including your doctors and your spouse, and this and that, and a level of guilt that just adds to it. So there are strong reasons why keto works, but keto works for people, for some, maybe for a lot. But if you truly are in that with dense nutritional foods versus trying to trick your body that you're into it. You see, we're still looking for the quick
fix. Yes.
Quick fix. So you might have results or reaction because your body dropped. You only have, what is it, Lauren? You only have to drop your body weight by 10% and it can reverse your insulin resistance.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But that's not the only thing that's going on. So with us as humans, especially those of us that have PCOS, we have to be really, 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 really aware that it is dense nutrition, not manufactured. I'm not saying for people who choose to go the manufactured way that's right or wrong. If they're getting results, that's great. But don't make the mistake of saying that is a one size fits all. I feel very strongly about what I've gone through, and I still temper my conversation and say, I want you to be willing to become your own scientist, your own advocate in this process. So make sure what you ingest is not tricking your body or is not truly dense nutrition, because you're not going to like what happens to you on the other side. When your body catches up after 30, 60, 90 days and boom, all of a sudden it comes up and you're like, I wasn't nourishing myself. Because what people are doing is they're trying to trick themselves. It's like taking Tums. So I'm going to go take this Gas-X so I can go eat foods that give me gas. Your body is reacting on a cellular level. If you are exploding in gas clouds, the last thing you want to do is ingest those foods. How many other ways can you do the most disgusting poof of like disgust? And you're like, I'm going to go eat these foods because it tastes yummy in my tummy for 5 seconds, but then I can't be in a crowd. But if I take the gas and see the food. No, your body
Yeah.
told you, you're reacting to it on a cellular level. That's why I say this comes with maturity. There is nutritional maturity, and also understanding that you were forever a student.
Yes.
So true.
You are
Yes.
forever a student in this.
Hence the reason we're doing this podcast. Hence the reason you're going to start your own podcast, because knowledge is potential power. And I want every single listener that is affected by PCOS or knows someone that's affected by PCOS to use this episode as their knowledge bank of, okay, this is one, I do have some control, and believing that and believing that I'm not going to be doomed to this outcome the rest of my life. Because I can't even imagine the mindset that belief has on a person and how it affects everything. It affects your self-confidence, your relationships, your work, your everything. Well, PCOS is the greatest robber of our sexuality, and people don't talk about that either. And they don't understand that, because there is a real numbness. I mean, we could literally, Lauren, talk about it.
Let's
go there.
50,000 podcasts on this topic, on the individual things that happen. You know, PCOS is the greatest robber of femininity.
Yeah.
And regardless if you're like, look, listen, I'm a tomboy. I'm not all about girly things, but understand what I'm talking about. Don't read into that.
Biology as a woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's certain feelings. I was completely not sexual and still struggle with that. When my hormones are out of whack, that it completely reduces all of that. It reduced my desire to put lipstick on or to get dressed. Well, you don't have to be feminine to do that. Listen, we can have that conversation too. And I'm not disagreeing with that. You can be your version of whatever it is that you want to be. And I will support you and stand there and go, yep, there's that version too.
Amen.
But I'm using some very specific examples, because you begin to not take care of yourself. You begin to not be able to get dressed because you swell and expand so quickly, 10, 15, 20 pounds in a week, that most people wouldn't understand, or 5, 6, 7, 8 inches in your waist, and you're off to a wedding and you can't show up in a social situation because you feel ashamed because you literally have no clothes to wear. Eat less. No, learn to nourish your body. These are all clues that tell you that there's something going on, that on a cellular level, you are in the driver's seat. So sexuality is another thing that people really struggle with in having comfort in themselves, not because of their size. Because I can tell you all day, from day one, you can love the body you're in, because what you've been through, any one of those things that you've gone through with PCOS would knock anyone else on their butt and out of the picture and not be able to handle it. Women with PCOS are badasses. We deal with not one, not two, multiple symptoms, and we are still here and still fighting and still trying to figure out a way on the other side. Those who are willing to do the work are the ones that I'm talking to.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I just say that I shaved this morning and you keep giving me chills? Like, this is like my 4th or 5th time. No, but it's so true.
It's totally true.
All I know is that people that are listening in their earbuds or on the radio are going to be like yelling at the yes, amen,
yes,
preach.
girl, yeah.
Feel empowered. You may not have the steps right now. You may not have the answers, but I want you to know, and that's why, Lauren, and I'm going to say your name wrong. Say it.
Cinthanie.
It's all good, girl. It's good.
All we're trying to do probably right now as a collective, we're so empowered by it, is just know that you have the potential to make a change. Even if it's a 5, 10%, you are in the driver's seat of making your life better.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you got to love on what you have right now, because if you don't love this body and all the extra hair or the male pattern baldness or whatever, that body's gotten you through difficult times that most people couldn't handle one symptom. And that same body is going to get you to where you need to go. So you got to love it starting here. You got to love what's going on between your ears first, and love what you got going on, because that is your vessel to get you where you need to go. I honestly think women with PCOS are some of the most powerful, badass women out there.
For sure. Because you definitely fit in that category.
Yeah. And when you're challenged, you're changed, know, and that can go one of two ways. But even just like you said, there was no conversation when this was happening for you. And so even in this podcast, we're starting this conversation so that people can understand that even though you are at end of one, and it's going to take you being okay with working hard to take care of yourself, the fact that you're not just one voice, there's so many other voices that are starting to emerge on this topic. And people can know that even though they might not have the same solution as someone else, they have a community. There's people that they can lean on for support, that they're not going through this by themselves. There are others as well. You may have to do it for yourself, but you're never by yourself.
Nope. And to find that community that supports your goals.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of communities you can get into and they will support you staying right where you are.
Yeah. So if you had to suggest a place for women, especially because, you know, you're talking about how this came about for you at my age. And I have so many friends that are being diagnosed with PCOS right now. And it's an epidemic. Truthfully, this is an epidemic.
Well, because of the standard American diet.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
of
course.
The nutrition that people my age were, you know, the things that we consumed as kids are now affecting us as adults.
100%.
And we're finding that out right now because we're all coming into adulthood, you know? And so that's why it's like, it sounds like it's this brand new thing that just popped up and it's like this trend, but it's not. It's just that it's surfacing more and more and more. So that it's unfortunate, but at the same time, because it's surfacing more and more, it's giving you a bigger platform to be able to know that you can take care of yourself, that you'll be okay.
100%. So as far as where to go find that support?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to challenge any listener. I'm not going to give you a name, not even my site, not anything to begin with, because I think there's two things you need to evaluate. You need to evaluate where you are with your PCOS diagnosis. Are you empowered by it? Are the medications something that are kind of like badges of honor? Are you someone that talks a lot about, you know, TTC and rainbow babies and things like that? Because these are very real conversations. Okay. So I'm being kind of
explain to the listener what you mean by those.
Okay, so trying to conceive 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, rainbow baby, maybe somebody had been through IVF treatment or a number of, you know, Clomid. These are all things that people would utilize to be able to get pregnant artificially. And then rainbow babies are unfortunately that they were not able to carry to full term. These are very, very, very traumatic instances. And a lot of women are very defined by that. And I honor and I respect that. But I have to use those terms because I think people need to recognize where they are, because I was there too. So understand I've been through this entire evolution and I'm still evolving. Are you very defined by your PCOS? Are you very empowered by it? Are those medications important to you? Do you need to talk about all these, you know, fertility issues and things? You need to be surrounded by other people who are like that. Okay. But you want to be able to move away from that. So what I always recommend is where you are right now and where you want to go and what is that next step out of there. So the important part is to surround yourself with people who understand what you're going through, but are taking that next level of that. They're taking that next step in their health or starting to get in the driver's seat or in the driver's seat, and that you have to rise with them and be willing to test and get into this driver's seat. The reason why I say that is because it's very easy to get in communities that will keep you right where you are. And for some reason that really helps them. And maybe that's just where they want to be. But there are people, and this is who I talk to, are women who have PCOS that are ready to start getting into that driver's seat. So you need to find that community that matches your goal. And that you understand that it's scary and that it's going to require work on you, but not where it's comfortable. So find an organization that's going to take you out of your comfort zone, that you are willing to put your past aside, your drama and the trauma and everything that goes along with having PCOS and even getting the diagnosis, et cetera, and go, I want to put the work in to get the next level. And that's going to look different in everything that you do. So find a support group or a support system or people that you work with, much like your doctor, that you can partner together, that you will lift each other up. You might not have the knowledge now, but just by you being an active participant, being able to say, to show your work. Like when we talk to our mentos, Lauren, don't we like show our work? Like, hey, here's what I did. By the way, you told me about these things and I put these things into action. You did that. I do that to you.
Yep.
That's the kind of thing that you're looking for. So that support system is going to depend on where you are, the next level that you want to move from, and then understanding that everything is for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And if it's time for you to move on without fanfare, without guilt, without making other people feel bad about it, not allowing other people feel bad for you, and move on to the next car that you need to get to where you need to go. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, absolutely.
And that's why you stepped down from being spokesperson of the PCOS Association, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, because people on the board didn't want me talking about it because
once again, big food, big pharma, and big medicine.
It doesn't make money.
No.
If you stay sick, those companies stay rich. But if you find not only a way to heal yourself, but a voice to share it with other people, they will shut you down so quickly. Empowerment is the biggest enemy of those corporations.
I had women who had PCOS attacking me for it.
God, that's
that
crazy.
Was a time. But you know what? But think about it. I blessed it. I let it go. And I recognize
Yeah.
we all journey differently.
True.
I lashed out at people who tried to reach out to me to help me out about my journey.
Yeah.
It's not about the person who's reached out to you. It's about how you feel about yourself. And
No, true.
PCOS can be a very lonely, angry place to be, and physically on a hormonal level, like rages that you don't even understand, like where it's even coming from.
Yeah.
And so I don't take, did it hurt? Oh, it did.
Yeah.
But you know what? I will always take it for the team to help us all rise together.
I love
And if
that.
they came up to me later and said, hey, I don't even want to hear about what you did in the past. Are we in this together? Let's link arms and go, because I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm no different than you.
So let's talk about, because there's a few different kinds of stereotypes that have the diagnosis of PCOS, or maybe unofficially, but they're like, oh yeah, I definitely have these particular symptoms, and I think I might have PCOS. But one thing that I want to make sure is that not all of them look the same, like we said, right? And so you have the person who literally is the stereotype that most people think about, that's overweight, that's eating crap food, that is, all of the above. But you still have people that are into fitness, that aren't struggling with weight, but still have a lot of the symptoms and still are suffering nonetheless, right? So let's talk about first steps that we can give them guidance to, right? And so one of the first things, and I want to see, because I know the answer to this, because I know the time of life that you had, but stress.
Oh,
can we talk about stress and how that affects PCOS?
Stress will not only drive you into those behaviors that take you out of the driver's seat. Like I said, I utilize food not to feel good, but to numb.
Yeah.
And I would just gorge until I didn't feel anymore. And that would often result in me falling asleep. Stress is the worst thing. I look at my husband as multiple sclerosis. He lost the ability to walk for 2 years with multiple sclerosis and could have stayed there if he chose to not fight it. That's a whole other conversation, but we're strong believers in this. His progress is ridiculous.
Which actually I would like to re-interview both of you guys for another episode, because he is one of many people that I have witnessed myself taking control of his MS.
Yeah.
So,
and I remember the day that you saw him when we were at that event, the concern, and I go, we're on the same page with you.
Yes.
That was when he just nearly had passed away to his double infection.
Yeah.
So stress is the worst thing for everyone, but especially with PCOS. I'm not the doctor. That's what we got Dr. Lauren for. What that does on a cellular level, on a hormonal level, like how that comes in from the most primal part of our bodies and what it does, 100%. You are going to have stuff come out because of stress. It's going to manifest itself physically one way or the other.
Yeah.
You can ignore it all you want until finally you can't. I have a friend of mine who is battling cancer right now. Based off her story, she is confident the stress that she's gone through has driven her into the cancer. And I'm not going to disagree with what she said.
No, I won't either. And that's honestly, I think that would be the first place. Like if in an ideal world, I would love to tell a person, my top 5 or 10 things that if you have the ability to change overnight, this is where I start. But if we're just going to go one at a time, the very first thing that I would tell them is address the stress. And so that even doesn't even have anything to do with food. It has everything to do with our sleep, how we handle stress. Tell me some ways in which you took the stress in your life and changed the way you handled it to make it less.
So one of the first things that I did is I took my power back. I finally got ticked off enough and I went, you're not the boss of me. You're not the boss of me.
I love it.
And I was like, I am not. I was actually told when I left what I was doing in the plus size community. Again, I love the plus size community. So please don't misunderstand what I'm saying.
Of course.
That what I do is bad for plus size women. And I went, I can't walk up a New York City block. You are my friend. And you were telling me I can't openly support you, which I didn't ask you for. Right. And what I do is bad for plus size. That's okay, because she has done remarkable things for her health. And however that came about, again, total forgiveness. We all say and do stupid things. Totally got that. So as far as stress relief, one of the things that I didn't do, which cost you no money, was to get up and move. So I took my power back from other people. I refused to, because I literally allowed the world to define me. And then when you lose everything, everybody's gonna tell you what a loser you are. I had a relative tell me, look at what you've become. You've become disgusting, this and that and that. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's a way to empower someone.
Wow.
Anyways, long story short, so all these people, and I was like, yeah. And so I was taking that. It was like Velcro, which, by the way, notice I said Velcro because I can peel that off.
Amen.
Right?
Yeah.
So I was taking that all on. So I took my power back. And I blocked the people, including relatives, anybody I allowed to find me, anybody I allowed weigh me down, and I blocked it and I shut it all down. So it took time. That was number 1. 2, I started moving my body my way.
Yes.
So just moving my body my way. If you want to get up and dance, what a resource you have right here.
Hey!
Right? So,
which, by the way, you need to come back to my class. I'm just saying.
My foot's better. So
yay.
So get up and move your body because there's something in that release.
Yeah.
So those are 2 things. Sleep is an easy solution, but if you're dealing with blood sugar issues and things like that, you might be having exhaustion as it is.
Yeah.
And to do it without medications, but to turn off your electronics early, get to bed, just shut it down and just allow yourself. The biggest thing that we deal with when we're dealing with PCOS and the depression that comes along with it is that we don't feel. And feelings become very uncomfortable. So sometimes in the quiet of the night, we begin to feel things. And so if you got to feel, girl, just feel it. Start journaling. Do whatever you need to do to get it out of you because you're wearing it on your body. You're wearing it on your body.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. So, and also, and like I said, embracing feeling. Being able to feel joy again, being able to feel sadness again, which I know sounds really, really weird, especially with so many of us dealing with depression. It's because we don't feel at all. And feeling feels uncomfortable. Feeling makes us feel out of control. And so to allow yourself to feel and process and to take the control back and whatever those steps are. So one of the things I love that Chalene Johnson said last spring, we were there together.
Yep.
And she said, you have to get more structure to have more freedom, adding some structure to your life. And also taking off this idea that I have to take care and do for everyone else and not for me is the biggest BS statement we can tell ourselves in our world. That is our way of saying, I don't want to do the work, or I'm too busy, or I don't have enough time, or I have this and this and this and this. You and everyone else, girl, your struggles are no different from someone else. The difference is somebody was willing to go and do the work. And that starts with kind of working between the ears. So finding ways to, to get in touch with that, to create some structure in your life. And I love the idea of personal development in the morning, and none of us were into personal development. We all thought it was like total woo woo, but
yeah.
Those, right?
Yes.
That give you those ahas. So, and notice none of that stuff I told you costs you anything.
No.
Yeah. I mean, right here we're podcasting, which is free personal development. There's so many episodes. And of course, when you start to find value in things, you're willing to invest in it. But if you just need to know, especially with personal development, even not, because I don't personally battle PCOS, I've battled depression, and just getting inside your own mind and whatever it is that you're struggling with, personal development just allows you to arm yourself with the mental space and capacity that you need to not only maybe deal with stress, but to be okay with releasing stresses in your life, releasing and letting go of people, situations, experiences that are added stress that are unnecessary. So arming yourself with that mental capacity to do that is such a big deal, because you might be like, well, my kids stress me out and I can't get rid of my kids. So you have to have the mental capacity to be able to deal with those stresses, because as a human being, I mean, we all get stressed out. We all deal with stress right now. I was complaining to Lauren. I feel so stupid because I was complaining to Lauren before this of how my face is breaking out because I'm getting married next month and I have a ton of stuff I need to do.
And we're like, that's first world problems.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I'm like, these are my problems. And honestly, they're not that bad, but they are my problems, And so just knowing that you can just arm yourself with the mental capacity to be able to take life head on and not have life happen to you and not have your illness happen to you or own you or define you. That's, I think, such an important step that is overlooked, because people are like, I'll be fine. I have to deal with it like it's life. But there are ways that you can make it easier to not only deal with, but to solve and to handle it.
Absolutely.
And also the people, because there are a lot of people that already have the diagnosis that have had multiple prescription meds given to them. And then there's the people that haven't had any. Know that you have the ability to take control, and is there a possibility that you might not be able or might not have to be on meds the rest of your life? Yeah. Can I guarantee it? No. But the fact that there's even hope that that's a possibility, you should that should give you a new sense of empowerment, right?
Yeah. Well, there are going to be women who are listening to this podcast right now. First of all, kudos to any husbands, boyfriends, lovers, partners that are listening, because you guys are part of this equation as much as anything else.
Yes.
And, it is not an easy thing to deal with. And I do know that there are going to be women who are listening to this who don't have the diagnosis yet and are holding themselves from moving forward because they need to hear those 4 little letters, PCOS.
Yeah.
Don't. One of the best things that you can do to find out if you are in the driver's seat, if you just make some of these little shifts, just these shifts, you guys just take action, any one of, a combination of, all of these things, and start incorporating healthier foods into your system, start removing. So when you're removing something, add something, let the shifts happen, let the feelings happen, and then go get your blood work done, or then get your blood work redone. And it's going to show you, hey, even if it's just a blip of an improvement, it's going to show you that in the driver's seat. So one of the things that I like to do is before I get blood work is I like to go all in and make sure that I am doing all the things I need to, so I can have blood work. Don't lie. Blood work don't lie. As long as I'm not looking at your thyroid compared to everyone with a healthy and an unhealthy thyroid, trying to determine whether yours are normal or not.
Right.
You're partnered up with a physician that wants to help you do this without that. That's an interview. That's something you should be looking for.
Oh yeah.
I like to go in and know the steps that I know that I can do. So when I go and I do the blood work, I'm like, look what happens when you're right on point with your stuff. All these experiences that you've had when you do this, look at your blood work. It's in the proof's in the pudding. So we sometimes what we do is we're waiting for diagnosis. We continue to spiral out of control until we hear those 4 little letters, and then we'll be willing to move forward. But if you start moving forward right now, you are going to help you in your process and your prognosis and all that kind of stuff, because you're already taking a few steps or a step or whatever in the right direction. Now you built that layer and that foundation, you can add something else to it. So don't wait to move forward. And as far as healthy eating, because you're a single mom or you work 3 jobs and healthy food is expensive, I told myself that too. What's expensive is you not nourishing yourself. What's expensive is actually putting the cheap food in your diet. And you might be cursing me and be mad at me right now and think that I don't understand, but believe me, everything I just said, I completely understand, and it'll take you time to see it too. And then when you do, you can write these guys and say, okay, I thought she was big and being a big old meanie, but I get it.
Exactly.
Girl, you was right.
Exactly. So I feel like this episode probably should go on another hour, because literally we could talk. There's so many more things that we could talk about.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm going to ask, do you mind if we do another time with you? So a follow-up.
Totally.
Because I would love to, because there's still so many other things that we need to talk about. But first things first, let the listeners know where they can find you, because I know that a lot of people are going to be like, oh, this girl, she's my tribe too. I want to follow her. So let them know all the places they can find you.
So you can find me at Coach Tulin. Tulin is spelled Tulin, T as in Tom, ULIN, on YouTube, on Facebook. You can also find me on Pinterest. And then if you're looking for me on Instagram or Instagram stories, you can find me at I am Tulin, IAMTULIN. And that's where I am on Instagram stories. So I'm always sharing my journey. I'm just really raw and honest about it. I'm not out to show perfection or, this happens quickly. I'm just really real. And that's what I loved about this podcast, is that we've given people who have thoughts rolling around their head a voice. And not feeling alone, and that it can be just a step that they needed. So
exactly. And one thing that we always end every episode by giving the listener a special message, which I know that you will agree with as well, but it goes to mine and Cinthany's heart in a major way. So Cinthanie, will you give them the message to close this awesome episode out?
Can I just say real quick before I say that? I feel like this is probably going to be one of our most downloaded episodes
100%.
that we have yet to record. Like I know it.
Well, and that's why I wanted to put her on the spot and ask her to come back, because this is the powerful voice that I want this podcast to have to change people's lives forever.
Her own podcast.
Oh yeah.
Time we
do we have a name for your podcast yet?
I probably Coach Tulin. I mean, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
But it's coming.
Yeah,
it's coming. All right,
But
Cinthanie.
my message for the listeners is that you are a good person and you deserve good things to happen to you.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Coach Tulin, for your time today. And thank you guys, listeners, for taking the time to listen to this episode. We appreciate every single person subscribing to the podcast, leaving a review. We love 5-star reviews, and sharing the podcast, because knowledge is potential power and we want to empower the listener. So you guys, thank you again. Hope you have a Fitz and Healthy day. Make sure that you find us on social media. You can find Cinthanie on Instagram and Facebook at Cinthanie. So that's CINTHANIE, and on Snapchat at Cinthanie P. And find me on social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all at Club Fitz Fitness. Remember, that's FITZ Fitness. And on Snapchat, just at Club Fitz. I appreciate your time listening so much. If you enjoyed this episode of the Fitz and Healthy podcast, can you please go do me a favor and go subscribe at whatever platform that it is that you listen to podcasts. Leave a review. We read every single review, and we appreciate the time that you take to leave your thoughts and opinions. Now, also remember, while I am a medical doctor, the information I provide here is not intended to provide medical advice or a professional diagnosis, opinion, treatment, or services to you or to any other individual. I am providing general information for educational and informational purposes only, and it is not a substitute for medical or professional care. You should not use this information in place of a visit, call, consultation, or the advice of your physician or other healthcare provider. The information I share is not intended to treat, cure, or diagnose any disease or medical condition. If you believe you have a medical emergency, just call 911 immediately or your physician. Now, enough of that medical legal jargon. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I appreciate your time. Now, go live a Fitz and Healthy life.